Beneath the ground at Alton Towers, something horrible existed. Often slime would leak from the area and rumbling could be heard underground. 2 million years ago, an alien creature crash-landed into the Staffordshire countryside, where it would remain for many years, until it would be awoken during the construction of a new ride at Alton Towers.
A public announcement from the Phalanx regarding Nemesis to follow.
In 1994, Alton Towers would consult with a private military organisation known as the Phalanx to deal with this situation.
Access to the Nemesis Historical Archive has been authorized.
They would pin the creature's tentacles down, and the Thunder Valley, now forbidden, was deemed safe. All seemed well, and many people were attracted to the area. It wouldn't be until in a different corner of Forbidden Valley, a secret Phalanx research facility would be founded.
Reassure the public by inviting you to view our latest discovery.
Because the Phalanx can always be trusted, they wished to share their growing understanding of the Nemesis creature by displaying a discovered Nemesis egg. They reassured that everything was under control. What lay beneath at Nemesis Sub-Terra was a mystery, often called disappointing, abandoned for years, before returning as part of one of the greatest and unexpected comeback stories in Alton Towers history.
Find out more about how we're creating a secure future for generations to come. Anticipation.
In 2003, Astro Dancer, or Dino Dancer, or Dynamo, a small flat ride that had multiple homes throughout Alton Towers, was closed and removed from a corner of Forbidden Valley. Alton Towers had planned a hot air balloon ride to replace it, but these plans for the new attraction were declined due to the park's height restrictions. Instead, we would get a golf minigame where you could win prizes. The real attraction replacement came in 2006, when just like Dynamo, an attraction was moved from Ugland into the Forbidden Valley. Rockshot, a climbing wall, was renamed to Lava Lump and put in the former ride space, moving due to the opening of Rita, Queen of Speed. It would remain on this site until 2011, along with some additional trampolines. The first sign that something new would be coming to Alton Towers in 2012 would be a planning application to the Staffordshire Moorlands District Council in August 2011. This application suggested some form of dark ride, and rumours began pointing to Forbidden Valley. In September, these plans were released. The most notable aspect was that the new building would go underground, a little bit, and that it would be split into sections, hinting at some kind of pre-shows. These plans showed it would follow a military-style theme, and the ride shop would be housed in a shipping container. The plans did not include what would be inside the building, and speculation was rampant on what could await. Construction on this hyped new ride, dubbed the Catacombs Project, began in late September 2011. The first indication of what that theme for the ride would be would come on the 2011 Scarefest map, where it was listed in 2012, coming soon was Nemesis What Lies Beneath. Giant banners went up in Forbidden Valley, and a teaser website was set up which shows scientists discovering catacombs with the codename Nemesis Omega-1 and a transmission. At the end of 2011, the marketing campaign for this new attraction really began to ramp up, and it included extra teasers around the Forbidden Valley area, and even actors patrolling the area in radiation suits scanning park guests with Geiger counters, and handing out cards with the address to the teaser website. Sirens and announcements in the area informed that this area was unstable, and warning posters were hung up warning of hazardous materials. By October, planning permission for this new attraction was granted, and the mini website for it had been updated. A new header read 18 years later. Revealed here, 1818, 31, 12, 11. The teaser, 18 years after the original Nemesis ride opened, was set for 6:16 p.m. on New Year's Eve 2011. While the tie-in to the original Nemesis ride was confirmed, surprisingly very little was about what would be inside the attraction, and if the name was actually going to be what lies beneath. Speculation was still running rampant that it could be a drop ride, a full new kind of dark ride, though the building was pretty small, some kind of show, or some kind of spinning ride. Who doesn't love submitting to the spin in Forbidden Valley? There were actually some leaks though, that it was going to be some sort of ABC drop ride. Reports from the EAC exhibition had stated that ABC had confirmed they were working on a new drop-type ride in the UK, though nothing of where it would go would actually be confirmed. ABC Rides was founded in 1997 in Switzerland by a former Intamin employee. Their first ever attraction was a small rapids ride in Germany, and they continued with small flume rides around Europe, along with other small fairground-style rides. And it would be in 2007, a decade after the company was formed, that they would open their very first drop ride. The £1.5 million Extremis simulated the experience of being hung at the London dungeons. This, however, wasn't your standard drop tower. They were calling this a vertical dark ride. Over the years, there have been so many drop rides in existence of all different types, but I would argue that it is the vertical dark ride drop towers that are the most memorable. What really started with Tower of Terror was followed by another memorable attraction, Mystery Castle at Phantasialand. This was Tower of Terror on a budget. What theming and a story can really do to enhance a somewhat generic ride. ABC Ride's version inside the dungeon would be small. The original location for the London dungeon was situated under a railway line. They would take the space in one of these alcoves below the tracks to fit it in. Originally, the dungeon wanted a track ride, but it was just not enough space to fit it, so they would have to go up instead of across. The designers of the original London Dungeon drop ride would say that it was inspired by Phantasialand's Mystery Castle, another drop ride experience that hopefully would be elevated by its story. This drop tower would not scare anybody who was looking for thrills. It would be using the system as a dark ride experience that would hopefully elevate it, and also make it tough to figure out how high you even were when you were on. The dungeon drop tower was such a success that it began to be installed at other dungeons around the country and even abroad, multiple of which were made by ABC Rides. This small drop tower designed by ABC would go on to other parks that would introduce their own theme versions, some which were very elaborate, before they would be hired again by Merlin to create a new attraction. On New Year's Eve 2011, a teaser for Alton Towers' new vertical dark ride was released. In the year Nemesis opened, the story of the ride was a huge success, selling over £1 million worth of Nemesis merchandise. A year later, Alton Towers released a Nemesis comic book with a version of the story of the ride. This New Year's Eve release video 18 years later would show scenes from that comic. While the idea of the Phalanx was originally created during the concept for the ride, it would be that comic that would put the team at the forefront of the story. Here, they were a team of soldiers protecting Earth, descendants of Phalanx trained by alien warriors whose own world had been decimated by Nemesis. Alton Towers' new attraction would be based around a new version of the Phalanx, and be called Nemesis Sub-Terra. You know, Nemesis sub like under, terra like land, yet also terror like scary. Very clever. This 18 years later attraction would not feature the same superhero-esque comic book characters seen in the comic, but something perhaps a little more sinister. The Phalanx of Sub-Terra had been providing tactical security and biohazard containment to sensitive research locations across the globe. The definitely not shady Phalanx boasted an impressive safety record with guaranteed containment of any hazardous materials with the motto "Strength in Control." It had been the Phalanx that had pinned down the original Nemesis creature. News reports at the time were calling this a prequel to Nemesis. It was not. During construction, Alton Towers widely promoted that Jack Osborne, Ozzy Osbourne's son, had been given the job role of Director of Fear at the park, helping develop the concept of this new attraction with Towers' fear experts. They said the new attraction will be a psychologically and physically thrilling experience, taking place in a dark, intense underground setting, and will be based around the backstory of the original Nemesis attraction, which opened in 1994. As Director of Fear, Osborne would be involved throughout the attraction's development stages, and will be the first to test it out, guaranteeing that every element is as scary as possible. At this new attraction, the Phalanx wished to share with visitors their growing understanding of the Nemesis creature by inviting you to view their work at the Phalanx Research Facility. Deep below Forbidden Valley, the Phalanx had mapped out 27 kilometers of tunnels. During their mapping of the tunnels, a significant find had been made, and they were going to make that visible to the public, as they knew that the public were very intrigued by Nemesis. Here, they would place on display a Nemesis egg. The ride was, as usual from Alton Towers at the time, following 13, marked to be a terrifying experience. They had even called in the BBFC, British Board of Film Classifications, who gave the ride an age rating, which was a first for them. They had said that it would be given a 12A age rating, and that nobody under 12 should ride without an adult. They reported the attraction contained some intense moments, similar to what may be experienced in a horror or sci-fi fiction film.
It's this immersive experience, very similar to you get when you're watching a film. So they came and they visited, and they gave it a 12A classification.
Other marketing promotions included a Nemesis Sub-Terra floor illusion installed in a lift at the Southside Shopping Centre, which was filmed and said to be a tease for what was to come.
I was shocked.
The park had even put out a call for riders who had ridden the original Nemesis in 1994 to contact them to come up and experience the new addition to its story. There was much talk at the time about how the ride would have heart rate monitors at the exit to check if people were okay. In reality, this was really only a brief marketing stunt they did for some media to show how scary the ride was. People were expecting what was waiting inside to be an immersive, terrifying attraction that would expand the story of Nemesis. On March 24, 2012, all would be revealed, and Nemesis Sub-Terra would open. Before that, though, the staff had to be trained to deal with working in claustrophobic conditions.
Some of our employees have found it increasingly difficult to deal with the intense underground claustrophobic effects there is in the attraction.
So they brought in Pixie Lynott and her team to train them.
So we're here today to help train the staff of Nemesis Sub-Terra to overcome their fear of claustrophobia.
We're professional contortionists, so it's our job to be in very small, confined spaces.
The most difficult thing about it is it's very claustrophobic due to the lack of space.
It's probably good to find the flattest way that you can get down. Maybe by spreading out your body and putting one head, one leg, here, right head. Make sure you breathe. And it's quite good if you zone out. You just get in the box and chill out a bit.
Yeah, I hope it helped. The opening of Nemesis Sub-Terra had Phalanx guards roaming the area and shouting at visitors to get in line. Employees for the ride had specific uniforms, which was a first for a ride at Alton Towers for quite some time. As you entered past the Phalanx tank, likely the stag as first seen in the comics, you saw the green shed that awaited. Here, if you travelled into the woods alone, you would find the Phalanx compound. The ride had a 1.4 meter height requirement, the same as the major coasters at the park. On opening day, Q-Line videos explained the story. However, they were tough to hear on a busy day, and most entered not really knowing what was going on or why they were going in there. After the queue, you entered into a small batching area. Here, employees would literally shout and insult you to get in line and batch you into the groups. They would also insult your appearance if you were unlucky. The story was supposed to be that the Phalanx had invited people in to see their latest and greatest discovery. Why, then, when you entered, were they literally shouting at you and berating you? I will never know. The actors have always been one of the standouts on this attraction. Phalanx were not just shady, they were mean, I guess. I went through the compound, they were definitely mean. Eventually, a lift arrives and you would enter. This lift is quite obviously not moving, but a moving floor that vibrated and lights attempt to give the illusion that you are going underground. As you exit into a cave system, you enter the ride chamber, where in the middle of a room sits the Nemesis egg. Here, 4 ABC drop towers with 10 seats each sit facing this egg. After you assume the position in your seat, right away the lights flickered and went off and the ride would drop. Many complained about how forceless this drop felt at opening. The ride's drop height is a little less than 20 feet. Don't Look Down didn't apply here, since a floor blocked the drop so you couldn't see anything of the space below you until you were in it. And 2, even if you could, it wouldn't be that impressive. You could say it was quite timid. The ride vehicle holds at the bottom of the drop in the lower section, where you get sprayed with water in the middle of a small cavern. This cavern was described as looking like leftover Femin from Ice Age, which also opened the same year. As you return to the top section, the egg in the top room would now be cracked open. The restraints would lift, and Phalanx officers would shout at you to get out as fast as possible. You are rushed into a second lift, which has more violent effects of shaking and lighting than the first, with sounds of a Nemesis monster attacking. Was it the new hatched baby one? I guess. Once the lift ride ended, the doors opened, and that was it. You were done with your 7-minute experience. Some effects on opening days were not even working, such as leg ticklers in the bottom chamber and back pokers. These were working within a few days of opening, but this did not help the opening perception for this new attraction. You had one job, Jack, and you failed. I guess he couldn't cut it. The ride was a somewhat tamer experience of the former extraterrestrial alien encounter at Magic Kingdom. Without actually seeing any aliens at all, the reaction to the new attraction was extremely negative. The build-up was good, but the payoff was just not worth it. The marketing for the ride, as always, was incredible, but just as 13 did, led you to expect more than it was. The suspense could be fine, the theming okay, but it was too short, not scary, and the drop disappointing. Many called it a waste of time, more like a pre-show to Nemesis than an actual ride. The whole experience was just too rushed, you had no time to take in what was happening, and most of the time had no idea what was going on. To give the park credit, they began placing people at the exit to get feedback, and began to play around with ideas for what they could do. They were aware of the negative reaction to the experience and began working right away on trying to improve it. The attraction had cost Alton Towers just over £4 million to create, and things had to change quickly. By April, just a few weeks later, the first changes to Sub-Terra came. Now as you sat, it was explained that the Phalanx believed the egg to be dormant, but recently, it had been showing signs of life. The lights now went out, and rather than drop you right away, you were sprayed with water, and the lights came back on, with the egg in front of you now broken open. It was then that you dropped.
The Holbrooks are amongst the survivors this time round, so how was it?
Yeah, very good.
Brilliant,
yeah.
yes.
While the changes during the second version of Sub-Terra did improve the experience and make it slightly longer, it was all that could be really done within a week or two of opening. Was it now your worst nightmare underground as advertised? Well, no, but it was better than it began. The marketing for the attraction and the fact you had no idea what was going to go on inside built up hopes and expectations for what this attraction would be that led people to be disappointed. On May 21st, 2012, Nemesis Sub-Terra was set to close for 5 days of maintenance work. The park operations manager had stated that the ride had yet to be officially finished by Alton Towers. It definitely was not because of the negative reviews coming in from the version they opened. No, it was that they hadn't finished it yet. During this downtime, Merlin added their tried and trusty friend to the attraction. A nice and shiny shipping container, often used, always versatile, always cheap. Who needs to make a building when you can make a shipping container into anything you can dream? This new shipping container was placed at the end of the attraction. Now, after exiting the lift, you would be sent into a small scare maze-esque corridor of darkness. Actors in gas masks would now jump out at you as you went through the final maze section. Sub-Terra could now be considered somewhat scary. The lighting and sound effects on the ride were also tightened up and improved during the downtime. Fog was also added in sections of the experience that at times could make it feel like you were feeding the flames. The whole experience was a little longer, a little scarier, and from the opening day, a little better. And now you could always see someone exiting smiling, which was never seen in the first version. Don't get me wrong, the majority of people still thought it was rubbish, but they had tried to improve that rubbish. And you know what? I kinda have grown over the years to like it. It had gone from sub-terrible to sub-it's alright. That may say more about how my expectations of attractions have changed over the years at Merlin Parks though. Nemesis Sub-Terra is a themed experience that ties into the iconic Nemesis story that is somewhat of a dark ride that borrowed heavily from the London dungeon, yet here didn't charge you extra to go in. While like many, I thought the ride was poor at the start, now I will take it. Was it the UK's Alien Encounter? Well, no, but this was a fraction of the cost of that. Was it the UK's Stitch's Great Escape? Well, again, no. They at least had cool animatronics on that one. But it was something. It was our weird Nemesis dark ride, and I would go on it when I visited regardless. I mean, if the line was short. I will always stand by my thought that Alton Towers needs more dark rides, and also needs more flat rides. And I can't complain about one that tries to combine both. This wouldn't be the last time that Merlin would try a strange horror hybrid dark ride kind of attraction either.
Over the last 3 years, I have been working to completely reinvent the concept of the Ghost Train.
At Fort Park, they would attempt something more ambitious with Darren Brown's Ghost Train, an attraction that cost over 4 times the price of Nemesis Sub-Terra, and an attraction that was 100 million% worse than it. Now they have removed the VR, and oh boy, let me tell you about this new version. The actors are good, but once you get... No wait, sorry, wrong video, I got distracted.
All aboard the Ghost Train.
No thanks. The new and improved Nemesis Sub-Terra was now officially open, though it wouldn't be for long. After just 4 seasons in October 2015, it was confirmed the ride would close for the rest of that season, just over 3 years after opening. After the tragic Smiler accident in June 2015, Alton Towers were desperate to cut costs. The park announced that 6 of its attractions would not reopen the following season, including Nemesis Sub-Terra. It was unknown if they would ever reopen again. Sub-Terra was expensive to run for what it was, especially with the amount of staff needed. Its reputation was not so great, and it was having issues with its restraints, which had been modified earlier in the season and were now less accommodating. After the closure, Nemesis Sub-Terra's future would be unknown, and year by year the attraction sat visible, but abandoned in Forbidden Valley. Many rumours over the years began about its future. Would it be removed? Had the ride vehicles already been taken out? Was the eggs even still in there? In 2018, scaffolding was added to the building, and during 2018 and 2019, the Sub-Terra building was home to a scare attraction for Scarefest. Project 42, themed around a viral outbreak, was created in the interior of the former attraction, and the story was set in a phalanx compound. The Nemesis egg and theme-in could be seen during the experience, and the scare maze had phalanx operatives throughout. This would not be the first time, or the last, that the phalanx would be used at Scarefest, with the shady organisation featuring in the Scare Zone Dark Apocalypse in 2015, along with being in the Scarefest After Hours experience Subspecies Operation Lockdown, and again in 2024.
All right, next up we are doing the compound. This is themed after the phalanx. This is the Phalanx Compound Center. The Phalanx have brought you here as they suspect you to be a member of the anarchist group known as Seek the Truth. Compound is also the home to the Nemesis younglings.
Let me go!
I don't even know how to describe that, but we'll talk about that one later. As Sub-Terra sat there abandoned, its story didn't end here. It's a tale with a twist.
Following recent and unforeseen events at the facility, we would like to further reassure the public by inviting you to view our latest discovery.
In early 2023, rumours began to circulate that Sub-Terra would be coming back, after sitting closed for years. Work had begun to be seen outside the building, with new flooring being placed. A new logo and sign was added up front, and eventually it was confirmed. Sub-Terra would be returning to Alton Towers. The reopened version was much the same. Those who experienced the new version saw updated screens with new Phalanx logos and a very similar pre-show to before, now without the employees shouting at you as you got in. The egg inside had been painted a new colour, and the ending, which was the section that had changed the most, now had a Phalanx operative directing guests into a decontamination area after the final lift. This was now a white corridor with actors in red boiler suits and gas masks. Well, if you're lucky to be there when the actors are actually there.
It has come to our attention that false information has been shared regarding our investigation into Nemesis. We assure you that our extensive and ongoing tests prove that she poses no danger to the public. And as a gesture of our unshakable confidence, we invite you to view our latest discovery.
Sub-Terra the ride that nearly everyone hated on when it first opened was back, and now they loved it. All it took was sitting closed for years for people to miss it. It was essentially the exact same experience with very few little tweaks. I truly still believe that if it had just a little bit more to the experience, it would have become another beloved themed attraction, perhaps even a legend of the towers. But sadly, it just continued to not quite meet those expectations set before you went in. Though I would rather it still be there open than sat abandoned as it has for many years. And some people do find it scary. Not quite as scary, however, as the human pinball machine or that terrifying duck. But, you know, it was up there in the scariness factor.
Find out more about how we are creating a secure future for generations to come at our newly recommissioned Phalanx Research Facility, which will be officially reopened on the morning of the 27th of May. We look forward to it with great anticipation.
2 years after reopening, in 2025, it won't be long until this becomes the attraction's longest run. An attraction that has sat abandoned longer than it has ever operated. Hopefully this will get reversed and it continues to operate for many, many more years. I 100% did not ever say 6 years ago that I doubt this ride would ever come back. I doubt the attraction will return in a similar form in the future, but stranger things have happened. Definitely don't worry about that, you didn't hear anything. While the ride has remained the same, it would be the Phalanx who would change during that close time, and were about to take center stage at Alton Towers. On the reopening day of Nemesis Sub-Terra, on May 27, 2023, the newly recommissioned Phalanx Research Facility was opened by a Phalanx spokesperson. He assured the crowd that Nemesis posed no danger to the public, despite the false information that had been shared, and that it had been reopened to allow guests to view the latest discovery for themselves.
We apologize for that brief interruption. I can assure you that everything is as it should be and is completely under control.
Something deeper was going on. just like when Nemesis Sub-Terra first opened, that while the attraction was quite poor, this would have been an amazing pre-show to something bigger, Nemesis, and this expedition could also be called a pre-show. The Phalanx story goes way deeper, way more sinister than originally expected. In 2022, the Phalanx had announced the closure of Nemesis. Nemesis was about to be reborn.